for the third month in a row, Pawnee Provider had to turn people away. I don't mean they were turning away new referrals. I mean individuals they'd been serving for a long time couldn't attend every single day anymore. Why? Because they didn't have the staffing to maintain safe ratios. So people were alternating days. Their finance department was flipping out as they were looking at their spreadsheets turning redder and redder and redder. All of this because the staffing shortage had gotten so bad, and they were considering that they might have to close their doors if things didn't turn around really soon. But there was something that they didn't even realize at that time that was even bigger. Hello, Difference Maker, and welcome to IDD Leader, the podcast that's all about helping human service organizations retain and grow their workforce using behavioral science. I am your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. Today, we're covering 3 secrets for staff retention at your organization. Those organizations that have been nailing it and have kept their staff retention nice and high, they're typically using all 3 of these secrets every single day. And those organizations that are struggling often are using none, or maybe they've got one of these right. So by the end of this episode, you should be able to immediately start turning things around at your organization to see your staff sticking around longer. Cringe Corner. Each of these secrets has their own cringeworthy moments that highlight them. Moment number 1, the leader who talks about the problem with not enough reimbursement from the government for the rates to go up. They're talking about how McDonald's and Aldi and Walmart is basically poaching or stealing their employees because they get paid more when they work there. They're talking about how it could be because it's football season that people are quitting, or because now it's summer break vacation, so people are quitting. It's always something out there. Moment number 2 that's very cringeworthy is when the DSP shows up to work and they are picking up slack from all these other coworkers. No one else is doing their job. They're the only one that in their perception, they're the only one that's actually pulling their weight around there. And they're not wrong, because if you looked around, they're probably the only one that's working hard. And so they start to resent showing up to work, not because they don't enjoy serving the individuals, but because when they look around, their coworkers aren't pulling their weight. Moment number 3 is the frontline supervisor who, because 1 or 2 employees is showing up late, cracks down with a 15-minute lecture to the whole team about how they have to show up on time or else it's causing all these problems. Yeah, that's not the best way to handle that. And it points to a bigger problem. Behavior science breakdown. Secret number 1 is for leaders to own the problem of high staff turnover, and then to actively be pursuing resources to fix it. Now, this might seem really obvious, but what happens a lot of times is there's this negative reinforcement cycle, to use behavior terms. And what that means is it's a lot more painful to look at and to try to solve that problem directly than it is to delay looking at it, or to blame something else, or to push it off into the future. And what happens is this becomes a trap where, oh, yeah, there's probably things we could do to solve it, but there's the problem of the other employers, or there's the problem of the reimbursement rates aren't enough, or it could be any other external problem, but it gets pushed out there, and as soon as it gets blamed on something else, then there's a sense of relief that comes. But really it's just an avoidance tactic to not really face what's going on or face the contribution that the organization itself has to its own turnover problem. And sometimes organizations get stuck in this for a long time. The other aspect of this is it's not just an issue of the attitude of the leader. It's also that if things are working out fine financially, there's often no motivation to solve the turnover problem. Because, hey, if all the numbers are adding up, and everyone that wants to be getting paid at the top is getting paid, and the page is black and not red on the finance sheets, then there can be very little motivation. Well, why would we try to fix this? Because it's actually working. But the thing is, it's working until it isn't. And often, by the time an organization realizes that it's not working, they're behind, and it can have this snowballing effect where it's very difficult to catch up. Secret number 2 is to master the employee experience. The employee experience is what it's like to work there on any given day, any given week, the sum total of all the positive, negative experiences that your employees are having. Now, behaviorally, you can kind of think of it like this. It's sort of like a bank. Every time that something positive happens at work, I get a compliment from a coworker, or I see a client succeed at something and I helped participate in that, or the big stuff like a bonus or a raise, these kinds of things, but all the little stuff too. A problem gets solved. My computer's not working right, and I was able to quickly get that resolved without a lot of frustration. Those are deposits into the bank. Every time that there's a deposit made, that's a plus. Now, anytime there's a negative experience, it's like a withdrawal being made at the bank, my experience bank as an employee. And so when employees' experience banks start to have a lot more withdrawals than deposits, then they're having a terrible employee experience, and they're looking to get out the door if they haven't already quit. Strong, healthy employers know that they need to really pay attention to this concept, and they need to double down on the things that employees are liking and are their positive experiences. To use the official term behaviorally, they're adding a lot more reinforcement into the environment. And they also want to mitigate, they want to reduce as many of the negative experiences as possible. Because one of the worst things that can happen, like in the cringe corner example, is that a positive employee who's engaging in best practices, maybe even they're an all-star, and they're getting punished for it because their peers are not doing what they're supposed to do, so now they're getting more work dumped on them, or maybe they're getting side glances from their peers like, hey, stop performing so high because around here we don't do that. And that's when the culture is really not going in the right direction. But either way, those experiences being mitigated, or even simple things like trying to submit something on the computer and it's not working, getting quick support and assistance with it so that they don't build up over time or have a bunch of those types of experiences, it's very powerful, and it helps a lot when it comes to employee retention. And so, again, that's really crucial, is master the employee experience. Secret number 3 is that your frontline supervisors are more important than you think. And not just that they know how to provide the support for the individuals being served, but especially that they know how to be a boss, that they know how to have some basic people management skills so that they are creating a positive employee experience for those that work under them or work for them, that are part of their team. Many organizations recognize there's a need for training and for teaching about all kinds of different things when it comes to the Fatal 4, which turned into the Fatal 5, which turned into the Fatal 6, these health issues that are related with the IDD population, or when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, when it comes to trying to have person-centered care. There's value in all those things. However, one of the things that often gets overlooked the most is when someone often goes from a frontline employee, from a DSP to becoming a supervisor, they don't necessarily get trained on what it looks like to manage people. And this is a crucial skill that strong, healthy organizations that have low turnover are doing very well, which is they're mentoring their new frontline supervisors, they're providing training, and I don't just mean that they're sitting them in front of a computer where they can hear someone talk about it. I mean they're getting real-time feedback on how are hard conversations going. What did it look like? How did it go when you had to tell the person that's been showing up late for 3 different times in the last month that they need to stop that, or else they're going to be getting written up and possibly risk getting fired? How did that conversation go? Or talking it through ahead of time so that they have a clear plan on how to do that, and they're not just spouting off to the whole team when they're frustrated and stressed out. Even conversations about how is stress management, time management going. The kinds of skills that are needed in being that frontline manager, frontline boss, so crucial for them to succeed, but also crucial to maintain high retention of employees. That is a differentiator, and again, it shouldn't be a secret, but it seems to be a secret because so often it's not done. And it's kind of just assumed, well, they were good with the individuals being served and they're a great worker, so they'll figure it out. Well, they may or may not figure it out. But if they're not figuring it out the whole time that they're not, it's weighing down the rest of the broader team, and it's really hurting their specific team, the people that are reporting to them. So that's where you want to have as much resource go into teaching them, training them, coaching them to become great managers, great bosses. That will save you so many headaches in the long run. Scripted. Let's make this really practical with your frontline supervisors, with some things that they should not say and what they should say instead. They should not say, hey, you're always running late. If this keeps up, there's going to be a problem. Instead, they should say, I noticed you were late 3 times in the last 4 weeks. If it happens one more time, I'm going to have to write you up and start a corrective action plan. Is there anything I can do to help support you being on time? Or what needs to change? You hear how different those are? The one communicates blame, the other communicates support. Both ways, they're communicating about the problem, but one is so much better than the other. Or here's another example. They should not say, if you don't want to be here, then don't even show up to work. What they could say instead is, hey, I've noticed that you seem a little bit off lately. Normally you are smiling more or more cheerful, and is something bothering you? Is there anything I can help with? Here's an example when it comes to giving corrective feedback. Hey, I noticed you messed up again. Are you ever going to get this right? Do you even know what you're doing? Yeah, nothing along those lines can be helpful. So instead, what they should be saying is, wow, that did not go as planned, did it? Let's go over it again so we can make sure that it goes better the next time. Here's an example when it comes to recognizing good work. Nice job today. That's what you don't want them to say. What you do want them to say instead would be something like, I noticed when you handled that difficult situation with the client, you stayed calm, you were supportive, and you even were aware of your teammates' needs. That was amazing. Great job. And lastly, here's an example when it comes to delegating a task. What you don't want them to say is, well, just do it the way I've done it. Here, take this on. I don't have time to show you more right now. Instead, what you do want them to say is, I'd love for you to take on this other responsibility. Let's talk through the steps and make sure you feel comfortable with it. And then if you have additional questions, I've got your back. But I'm sure you'll do great. In all these examples, what's happening is that the supervisors are displaying those better people management skills, which is secret number 3. When they do that, it creates buy-in, it creates a positive employee experience, and it makes their staff want to keep working for them and want to keep working for your organization. One of the most powerful tools you can do is to address fully the need for good people management skills for your frontline supervisors. Action moves. Well, as great as it is to hear and think about these types of issues, it really doesn't matter if there's not action backing it up, because action is what's going to bring about the change that's needed. So here's my encouragement. Pick one of those 3 secrets and then back it up with an action step that you can take. And I've got a couple suggestions. The first one, if there's not enough ownership from you personally or within your organization, then get busy with some research and with this mentality and this decision that we're going to tackle this no matter what. A lot of times, it's the hardest step is the first 1 or 2. And I don't mean just making 1 or 2 decisions that, oh yeah, we'll try to make staff turnover better. I mean fundamentally deciding we are going to be a low turnover organization because we're going to be an amazing place to work. When that decision is made, especially if it's made at the top of the organization, and then a whole bunch of other decisions start to line up after that is fundamentally made. And the other piece of the action is simply find organizations that are low turnover and find out what they're doing. Find out what types of decisions they're making. The research that you do will be invaluable to you in the process of taking ownership or of having that happen across your whole organization. For secret number 2, a clear action step would be to ask employees what's the biggest frustration and start to address that right away, and pay attention to what people are saying is the biggest benefit or the thing they like most about working there, and try to double down on that. So you're giving more of the positives in that bank, and you're trying to limit the number of withdrawals that are happening. And if you're looking to address secret number 3, I've got a very simple next step for you. If you haven't already checked it out, there's a free download called the Turnover Fix Playbook, which addresses 4 simple supervisor habits that help improve staff retention. You can download it at iddleader.com/supervisor. And it also even has a checklist so that supervisors can see how they're doing if they're able to implement those different new habits. And even the simplest little habits can go a long way when it comes to adjusting how they talk to people or how they're handling different situations. I think you'll find it to be very helpful. Well, until next time, difference maker, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.